welcome to Nadia's studio. This is kind of going back. I have uploaded a little out of order, and as I mentioned previously in my last video, it's due to I worked on this 2-page spread and realized due to elements I added later in the same setting, it was not going to work because I needed a pathway going through it where all these kids are running. So I also had to make the decision whether to include the first version. Since it is similar, I do make more changes than just the path later, but more or less it's the same thing. But I do approach the painting a little different. There are just kind of enough differences that I thought perhaps that's interesting, perhaps seeing everything that went into it and then it needing to be scrapped, what you may like from the first version, what got changed. But at any rate, I did decide to include both. So what you're seeing here is going to be the version we don't keep. Perhaps we'll use it for other purposes. Perhaps I can pull the kids out for stickers and things. We'll see. But let's see. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit this time around. I have been going through a big kind of burnout, kind of overwhelm and fear, at least specifically somehow related to working on the book or doing art in general. I have had a real struggle getting myself to sit down at my desk and start painting or even doing the inking. And some of it might be because I do feel I do want to record it, and that takes up more time. That means I need it to be done certain times of the day. I need to have it set up, make sure my phone is charged, all of that. Just a little extra added element that's sometimes is fine, and in this case, it added a little bit more anxiety to the fire. Because I'm doing summer classes currently because I wanted to finish up at my community college with an associate's, and I realized I needed a few extra classes to round it out. And right now, currently in July, I have an overlap with the school I've also transferred to. I do it all online, so that definitely helps. But that means right now I have double the workload school-wise because of that. But even before that, even kind of just struggling over this past summer, summer is also an element I should mention. I don't do well with heat or humidity, and where I live, those are a strong combination. And so even when trying to stay inside, if I just go out for a little bit, or if the AC kind of turns off for a little bit just to get because it gets to a good point but quickly just escalates, and then I feel the humidity. It's very, very draining on my body. My body doesn't like it. If exposed to it enough, I tend to get sick. So that it does limit my normal working capacity. So yeah, so kind of I've been working on school with that, which school was taking my kind of priority at times. And as far as I've been sharing a lot with things I've made through crocheting because I like to multitask when I'm listening to lectures or I have my books on audio form. And so I'm able to do that rather mindlessly. So I've actually been very productive in that area. And that kind of has led into also a guilt that I haven't made the progress I intended to on the picture book because, I'm getting paid for that, and that is a commitment I made. But I was just like always looking over at my desk, and I was like, not ready for it, not ready for it. Just sometimes almost like this visceral fear that I was like, I can not bring my body to sit down and do that. It's kind of hard to explain, but for anyone maybe who has had burnout or art block or just has really struggled with maybe overwhelm of too many things. Some things, even sometimes, something that would take 15 minutes, but if it's like, paperwork or something, I'm like, but I just can't bring myself to do it. It's kind of been a bit like that. And I've been struggling with so much guilt over it as well, so which just added to the feeling that I was like, there's more pressure on that, um, which makes me even want to do it less. And don't get me wrong, I love this book. I love my work. I love illustrating. Just something about this combination of things has accumulated to making it harder. So I finally kind of checked in with Carissa Bates, the author, and I had been putting it off for a while because, again, I was kind of feeling guilty and thinking, well, I can catch up, and really not taking in that I'm making it worse. I'm really making it a bigger thing in my head. And I always I knew she would be understanding. I knew she would be kind about it. And of course she was. She understands mental health and all that, and she's again wonderful to work with. So I knew that wasn't going to be an issue, but it was a little bit of I had to brave myself up to. I'm like, hey, this is kind of where I'm at, and and sure enough, once I kind of had that out with her, it gave me a sigh of relief and took off some of that tension. And I started doing a little more and a little more each day with painting. Able to sit down earlier in the day before I lose the light, and I was finding it not back to normal, not fully there, but better. And that did help. But I thought it was kind of um when you're in it, it feels like you're the only one who feels this, and this kind of experience is uh, so unique to you, and you're such a failure, and it's just so much negativity surrounding it. And then kind of coming out on the other end, um, you always look back, and I was like, I don't even know how I look back on it, but again, I'm still a little bit into it. Um, But yeah, I kind of wanted to share it because I think this is not a unique occurrence. I have experienced it several times in my life. I know others have. And I don't know if it happens more in creative people, or if people, maybe, you're going to just your regular job, but then some weeks just are really hard for maybe no apparent reason you can find, or just other life elements, and like everything's just too much. And in certain areas of your life there's a block, even if you're able to move forward in some different areas. So yeah, I don't know, I kind of just want to talk about that, especially to explain why I had to redo this spread, and kind of keeping it in and showing kind of how would you put that? Like, um, kind of it'll be okay in the end, and you can revisit or redo something or come back, and it's gonna be okay, and you can still make something good out of what you have to work with. Yeah, so here I'm putting in the grass finally. I do add in some sky as well, but I did take that out. I just removed it and added a different layer for the sky. But I do not keep it, of course, because we transition um, into the other illustration soon. But I did like this process I was doing for the ground. I am trying to add a little bit of yellow and orange, just a bit, to the little splatters for that fall look. And of course, going over with the pencil as I've been adding into this book for that texture. And I approach it differently in the other one because I thought I could do it better, or try it. I don't know. I was trying to lighten it a bit, and it wasn't right. I kind of go in with pencil first, kind of across with the watercolor pencil, and then wash over it. Didn't like it so much, so I kind of tried to recreate this one again, and it wasn't quite looking as this one did, which I was pretty happy with in the end. So that's kind of a little sad to see go. So overall, you will, or I will probably point them out. Some of the differences I do uh, take on between the two illustrations, and that's something interesting when I have to redo an illustration, which I both like and don't like, is when I have to do it for a second time, there are just going to be changes. There are going to be changes in the outlines because my hand will not make that exact same shape twice. There are going to be differences in just my memory or my approach to how I paint it or how the water is acting. Like in the second time, the water dried too quickly when I was doing the grass. So the blotches I tried to add are much more distinct. So you'll kind of see that going in. And now that we are at the stage where I can show you the second one, which is the one that will be in the picture book, and I'm going over the sketch outlining. A change I did do was to take out those back characters who were kind of shadow figures. I've just kind of used them so much lately as a shorthand for when I need more characters, but worry about them being too distracting. We saw them earlier that they were like in the crowd of kids, and I didn't mind them. But I did realize in this scenario, we do want it to look busy. We do want there to be a lot of distractions. There is supposed to be a main focus on what's happening with Twisty, and then kind of I should carry you over to the little library. But I thought it's okay that that's not focus, that might even be something you have to pay attention to amidst the chaos almost, because that's kind of probably why it happened, why she dropped the book. So I took those out. I added an extra character and then kind of ran out of steam, honestly. I could have added some more characters, but I was also worried now with the added bushes and trail that I was going to be losing space for text. So I thought it was hopefully going to be good enough. It's going to be squished onto the 2 pages, so hopefully that turns out okay. And yeah, so you can see with the grass, I went in actually with a colored watercolor pencil and then just used water over it to get this base green. And it's fine, but I found how it interacts later just wasn't what I was going for. Yeah, it just wasn't, I was less happy with it than the first time around. But in the end, I think it's all right. It will get layered, also some leaves for the fall. Something about the colors I kind of realized, because I kept trying to make things look fall, even though we weren't going very heavy leafy. And I realized I darkened more than I intended. I could have left the colors a lighter green and keeping some. Well, the problem was I needed like either the sky should have been a different color, like a yellow or something to give off that just the colors were different, even if it was exaggerated to the other seasons. But based on how that didn't go over well in the cover, I was afraid to do it and having to redo the pages, so I stuck with like a generic green for the grass. But as such, I just kept trying to warm it and darken it a bit. That they are luscious, grass that's just kind of dry and maybe a little dead. And then the leaves will be added later. I do add a bit with the trees later. But yeah, I don't know how I feel really about the fall section as much. I was looking forward to it because I do love fall. And I thought when I initially was planning the idea, I was thinking different color scheme, but I guess I chickened out because of how things went over with the cover, that the kids like the blue sky and then they like the green grass far more than the orange and the yellow. So yeah, I do miss that now, but at the time I really needed things to get going and I didn't want to risk more redos based on the colors. So that is where we are at with this one. This did take me very long, again, because of how I was feeling. I came back to it and did a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and kept going over the layers. I kind of panicked for a little bit, pulled away, and then actually in this section, once I pulled away and was thinking, I don't like it. Did I mess it up? Do I need to redo it again? And I came back and I liked how they were rendered, how they were given so much focus. Everything else was still in earlier layers, so still light, still very bland. But then I saw that and I was like, oh, actually, no, that's cute. That'll be okay. It's going to be okay. And it gave me a little perk up in that regard. Um, let's see. And I did want like something about at least the picture books I've worked on, particularly with Charissa Bates, because she is such a hopeful and positive energy. Her books are that way as well. There's usually a lot of positive energy. And so I notice just so many of the circumstances call for the kids to be smiling. And so I kind of often worry, is like, am I just doing too many just generic smiles and not pushing different expressions? But often it really doesn't call for that. They are all supposed to be happy, and the only one who's supposed to be a little surprised or a little distraught. I didn't want it overly, so I didn't want the overly dramatic dramatize it, because the idea behind her dropping Twisty and having the tear happen, she's quickly gonna like put him into the library, so she isn't she's more like, oh no, oops, it's like I kind of messed up and I need to cover this up. It isn't actually, oh no, what have I done, or I feel bad. It wasn't supposed to be that emotion. So it's more like, uh-oh, before someone sees, or some kind of emotion like that. There's just this, we do want her to, it's not very explicit, but when talking about it with Charissa Bates, it was kind of leaning towards that she was being kind of irresponsible and not taking good care of the books, as we will later demonstrate through different children, how to take care of the books, how to give them back some worth. Yeah, so that would just kind of be some themes that we pulled through. So I didn't want her to be either again, she's kind of being a little naughty, she's being irresponsible, not being that caring. And so it wasn't that, oh no, or also she's not being sly or being very overly willful. It's just, how children can be when they're just trying not to get in trouble and they're just avoiding responsibility. So that was just a little bit of what's demonstrated here. It is subtle, but I hope it kind of makes it through the story a bit, word wise, just like quickly shoved into the library, and then that's just kind of it. It's very unceremonious, it's very quick, and just kind of as life is. And then we kind of proceed on to the next stage, but we see the repercussions of what just happened that will be following Twisty throughout the story, now that she has a tear in her page, and how that affects her self-esteem. So yeah, I love that concept for a book, a picture book or a story, and that is happening to a book. I always, when I was little, did think my books could feel and had emotional responses to me if I read them, or if I was neglecting reading them, spending the time with them, things like that. I had a very, even before ever seeing Toy Story, I had a Toy Story view of the world as a kid, along with all my stuffed animals and things. So I think Toy Story was pretty spot on in that regard. So at least speaking from personal experience, I think kids do empathize and can relate to inanimate objects and to try to understand them. I think it helps in developing a level of empathy, because young children do, research-wise, they do animize. It's called animism, when they kind of attribute human feelings or human attributes to objects. They'll talk about it like the cup made itself fall down or something, they attribute that. So I think there is something to that kids can, maybe for sake of responsibility, you can have them connected to that. Well, what if these things did care? you should treat everything and everyone with respect, with care, with kindness. So I don't know. I think that kind of helps, perhaps, or I at least know I did relate to things that way. Um, and Also, interestingly, like in the Japanese culture, their folklore is very interesting because their inanimate objects are often spirits. It can be a cup, it can be a pot, it can be a lantern. Everything can potentially have a spiritual life, so they treat those things as that way. If something breaks, that means something. So I think that's just interesting, and that is something I find interesting to see incorporated into books, is when we get to see or get to understand things from, in this case, a book's point of view. But if it was a teacup, if it was something else, I think it is something kids follow along with. Yeah, so here I am trying now to add those splashes in, and the water dried really quickly, so they don't blur out as well, and they stay kind of this stronger orange instead of softening out. Eventually, you see here, they've done it again, and I'm trying just to go over with more green to soften it. But yeah, I didn't like that they stayed so prominent, but that's just kind of how it ended up, so I'm gonna work with it. And in the end, in the page, I don't think it's actually that noticeable. I'm going over the bushes, making them a little darker, adding shadows under the kids and under the library. So at this point, it's just finishing up some of the shadows that we need incorporated into things. But yeah, that's basically the end of this illustration. It will get some more touches and some more edits in the book, but as far as the painting process, this is about it. And so yeah, I'm glad I got it all together and I could share it with you finally. So thank you if you have stayed this long to watch the full video and listening to my rants and to my complaints. I do feel better. I do think I'll get a little bit more on track, but I'm not going to put so much pressure on myself about it going forward. But yeah, so I think I'll sign off there, and thank you again for watching. Do look out for the traveling book, Goes to School. The first book, just the traveling book, is available online. You can find it on Amazon and such places. I think it's on Goodreads. So yeah, thank you again.